Yo, what up guys, REAPOFF here and welcome back to another video. You might be wondering why I'm making a video comparing YouTube and Twitch URLs. It's a great question and here is exactly why. When it comes to giant websites like Twitch and YouTube, they need a way to uniquely identify every page. In the case of YouTube, there are millions and millions of videos, and each one needs a unique identifying URL. The premise of the video is to distinguish YouTube links and Twitch links and the pros and cons between them. I bring this up because there are properties that exist in the Twitch clip URL system that are subtle, but ingenious in terms of creating unique strings or links. And by the way, both of these links can be generated through the random string generator in both cases. To preface all of this, I realized the brilliance while developing the dictionary feature in my random string generator program. Let's begin. The first question, why does it matter? There are surprisingly many benefits to using the Twitch clip URL system. I'm first going to discuss the 3 different URL systems and their pros and cons, and then go over why its pros may outweigh the cons. The first URL system is an incremental URL system, which is the simplest and easiest to design, but mind-blowingly unsecure. Why? One major issue, without going into too much detail, is this system is the easiest and lossless way I can iterate through each URL from beginning to the last. Here's an example if YouTube used this incremental URL system. Each URL represents the video number on this link, and basically you can iterate through each one and look through unlisted videos this way. This reason alone is why YouTube does not use an incremental URL system. It has major security flaws, and anyone can just iterate through and get to the next page. Going on to a second URL system, which uses random strings to differentiate each page and unique ones, YouTube uses it, so let's take a look. Let's dive into the properties of the current YouTube URL system. In the current implementation of the YouTube URL system, they use 64 unique characters and 11 characters long to create a random string. How many possible YouTube URLs exist? Well, it's 64 to 11th power, which equates to 73 plus quintillion different YouTube links. To put this number in perspective, imagine every person on Earth, the 7.5 billion of us, and each of us can upload about 10 billion videos, and then we would run out of the possible spaces. To find out how this math works, essentially it's how my random string generator calculates permutations. It's a number of characters allowed to the power of the string length, and that's the only math you'll need to figure out every possible YouTube URL. Here are pros and cons of the YouTube URL system. The pros: short URLs, they're faster to generate, and they're pretty secure due to immense permutations. Cons of the YouTube URL system: they can be hard to type, have to manually filter out unwanted URLs, smaller amount of permutations than Twitch. Why it's technically not secure is each URL is guaranteed to have 11 characters, and each character has the same chance to generate in each of those 11 characters. And a few other things, but they're really nitpicky, so I'm not going to include them in this video. So the Twitch clip URL system, the ingenious idea is instead of using random characters, use random words and string them together like random strings. Here's an example of a Twitch clip URL. It has 3 words and 1 emote at the end. A quick side note, it's important to note that instead of using a random string generator, they use a random word generator. Now on to some math. What's really amazing here is that the math is just an approximation. Like everything about it is an approximation, because the true values are unknown. Well, let's assume this word list that they use to generate these random words is about 250,000 words. Things we know for sure is that 3 words will definitely appear, and the final word, the 4th one, will be a Twitch emote. So just a quick overview. There is definitely 3 words that will generate in order, and then 1 Twitch emote that will generate. So this will use 2 different word lists. So making the assumption that 250,000 words are in the regular word list and 10,000 emotes are in the other word list, it's 250,000 to the third power, the number of words to generate, times 10,000 if saying 10,000 is the possible emote list. This craziness equates to about 156 plus quintillion different Twitch URLs. Not only is this number much larger than the YouTube URL number, this is just an approximation. See, the thing is, we don't know. Why don't we know? Well, we don't know how many words are in the word list, and we don't know how much emotes there are in Twitch or what they're using in that word list. So essentially all we can do is guess, and this is a reasonable guess based on some certain criteria. Moving on to the pros and cons of the Twitch URL system. A much more readable URL, you can remember it and type it out. Much more permutations. No need to manually filter out unwanted words, you just don't include them in the word list. Each word is a different character size and has an unpredictable amount of characters in each URL. Some of the cons is it uses a much longer URL by default, and it's probably a bit slower because it has more possibilities to generate from and to check if the URL is in use. The beauty of this system is that each URL generated has an unknown character size, unlike YouTube. And the best part is, you can't necessarily crack these strings or iterate through them because you don't know what the URL size is. You get the benefit of a readable URL, much more permutations, don't need to filter out unwanted words, and have more security doing it. So it comes down to if you're creating a website or you're working on a website that needs different page URLs and an unknown amount, you should definitely consider the Twitch URL system. There's a website called Replit that also uses this technique, and it's a relatively new website from what I understand. It's funny because I've been thinking about this for a very long time, and I've been working on the video for over 6 months, and now I finally got around to making it. I know this video is directed at a niche of interest, but if it did catch your interest, I'm glad it did, and hopefully I was able to explain it very well.